Good evening to one and all. Welcome you all to the daily Indian Express newspaper analysis brought to you by Ganesh IAS Academy for the date 25th October 2023. Okay, let's get into the newspaper analysis. So these are all the social media handles of Ganesh IAS Academy, and it is the contact number. Please do like, share, comment as well as subscribe for the channel to get the regular update in relation to the examination. And mentioned here are the list of articles which we are going to have the analysis in the upcoming session. Have a look at it. So in this we are going to discuss the news related to why the US bond yield has rise and what impact does it carries, and India to outpace the Japan by 2020 and to become the second largest economy in the Asia Pacific region, and what is the reason behind the Mumbai's poor air quality in the recent times, and then Sri Lanka offers free visa to the Indians to revamp their tourism sectors after which has been hit by certain factors which we will discuss in the upcoming slides. And then finally the surge and fall, the volatility that exists in the vegetable price rise, which in turn has negative impact on the consumer food inflation. And then finally with the wrap up we will look into a practice prelims question. I want those students, those who are watching, please do comment the option point for the practice prelims question which will be appearing at the last slide, last phase of the today's session. Okay, let's analyze the each and every articles one by one. The US bond yield hits 16-year high of 5%. Why it is rising and what does it signals? So the news is related to, under prelims it is related to economic and social development. Similarly under mains it is related to Indian economy and issues relating to planning, mobilization of resource, growth, development and employment, which comes under GS paper 3 economic and development. Okay, let's look into the today's articles explanation as well as the analysis. See, the US bond yield has rise to 5.02%, which is very high since 2007. So what does this bond yield is about? So bond yield is nothing but the yearly return earned by the investors for the amount which they have invested in the bond or other instruments of the bonds. So why the yields are high in the US economy is that, first and foremost, it is because of rising crude oil price in the global scenario, because of the turmoil that is taking place in the Middle East region, and also the supply side constraint that has happened because of the COVID pandemic and then the Russian-Ukraine war. And then the rise of the oil across the global at the global level has a huge impact in terms of inflation at the national level. So the rise in inflation is also leading to the rise in interest rate in the economics, as a result of which the bond price is getting lowered. Simultaneously the bond yield, which is opposite to the bond price, is also getting raised in relation to the interest rate that is raised in the economy to contain the inflation. And then high interest rate expectation. So the inflation that is prevailing across the economies is not going to be smoothened in the near future. So that is the reason why the interest rate will be prolonging. The highest interest rate which has been made to contain the inflation will be prolonged for a certain period of time, as a result of which the bond yield is also rising. Similarly, the volatile labor market, because of the labor shortages which is happening because of many other reasons, like in the case of lack of skill development, lack of availability of the human resource in the particular region, and the supply side constraints, which has, and the lockdown and its related impact, it is creating volatile in the labor market, as a result of which the cost of production is also increasing, which in turn is having a huge price rise in the output of the production. And then the above trend growth. The trend growth is nothing but the common growth, which will be growing at the sequential basis, which will be under the control of the state. But in the case of the above trend growth means it is growing abnormally, so that the growth is not itself expected by the state. So the abnormal growth will have a huge toll in terms of the higher inflation rate, which in turn will be having the yield effect on the bond yields. So that is what the reason why the bond yields are higher in US in recent times. So what the rise in the bond yield means? So it will be increasing it will have a ripple effect on the other economy as well. So if the bond yield is rising in the US means surely the investors will be investing in those economies so that they could be able to have the higher return. So in order to reduce the pull out of the money in the other economies will also be rising their bond yields. So that in the case of India, surely we could expect that there will be a rise in bond yield. Secondly, the borrowing cost of the government will also get increased. See, post pandemics, the government is heavily, not only the Indian government but also the global government is investing more on the infrastructure to revamp their economy. So if investment is going to be made by the government means it will be mostly through borrowing only. The borrowing will happen through the one of the way is the borrowing through the bond market. So if the government is borrowing through the bond market means the cost of borrowing will be high because of the already raised yield. And then thirdly, the inflation expectation as well as the rate hike expectation is also rising the yield of the bond in the economies. So these are all the impact the yield is creating in the economy, will create in an economy, and then the upward pressure in the interest rate. See, if the bond yield is rising means surely there will be a capital flight from the fixed income to the bond yield investment. So that to contain the capital flight, the banks will be surely rising their interest rate simultaneously, so that the interest rate on the one hand will be rising, which in turn will have influence on bond yield. The rising bond yield will have in turn the effect, which in turn will have the upward pressure effect on the interest rate. Both will influence each other and they will be moving in the upward direction. So that is the reason why it is creating upward pressure on the interest rate. So what impact does the bond creates on an investor is it will be leading to immediate selling of the bond. Why? Because so if the bond yield is rising means, the price will get reduced. If the bond price is getting reduced means those investors, those who are having the bond in their hand, will be losing their return. So to immediately arrest the loss of the bond, they will be immediately selling off the bond in the market at the available price, so that they could able to rescue themselves from the future deterioration of the price that is going to happen because of the rise in the bond yield. Secondly, the asset value of the debt fund of the government will also decline. See, the government will be investing a certain portion of the money through debt fund, which is mostly through the bond. So because of the rise in the bond yield at the corresponding decrease in the bond price, the asset value of the the debt fund of the government will also get declined. Thirdly, it will have impact on the corporate bond. See, normally the corporate bonds price will be little higher than the government bond. So because of the increase in the yield price in the economy, the corporate bond price will also get reduced. and it has a chance that it will be equaling the government bond prices. So these are all the impact that will be created on the bond investors because of the rising yield. So what does the bond yield? As I said, like in the case of loan, the investor will be earning the periodic interest. Bond yield is nothing but the yearly profit being earned by the investors for the amount which has invested in the bond instruments. So this is what the analysis in relation to the rise of the bond yield in US economy. So what is the difference between the debt as well as the share instrument is that, see, the debt is nothing, debt instrument is, here the investor won't have any kind of rights in terms of the profit or the loss that is happening in the organization. Here the investor will be earning the interest rate which is fixed at the earlier period in which the contract has been made. But in the case of share instrument like equities, here the investor will become the part of the organization, so that he will take part in the profit as well as the loss of the organization. If the organization is earning a profit, means then that percentage of profit will be transferred to the share investors, and if the organization is suffering a loss, means then that loss will also be transferred to the share investors. But in the case of debt investors, whether the organization loses or gains, it does not matter to him. He will be earning the periodic revenue in the form of interest. So this is what the basic difference between debt and share. So what need to be studied further is, we should know about what is the Security Exchange Board of India and why it is created, what are all the structure, function and its formation and the objective of it. Secondly, we should also know about what is stock exchanges and why it came into being, what are all the objective it carries. Thirdly, what is the primary issues. Fourthly, we should also know about what is money market, what is capital market, and what is the difference between both of them. So these are all the other areas which we needed to be studied. India to outpace Japan to become the second largest economy by 2030. See, the news is related to under prelims, economics as well as social development. Similarly, under mains, it is related to Indian economy and issues relating to planning, mobilization of resource, growth, development and employment. So let's look into the analysis part of the news. The India's GDP is expected to rise to $7.3 trillion by 2030, so that it will be in a position to outpace the Japan's growth and it will be becoming the second largest economy in the Asia Pacific region. And then in 2002, India surpassed the UK as well as Germany in terms of the economy, and as now India is the third largest economy in the Asia Pacific region and fifth largest economy across the globe. And what is the reason for the growth that is happening and is going to happen in India is because of the FDI inflows in the last decade, because of the many initiatives in the form of policies, schemes and the coordination between the state and center and the state and between the different stakeholders. Secondly, the demographic dividends or the transition that is happening. See, most of the population in the Indian economy is youth population, and they are going to enter into the labor market, means surely there will be huge productivity in terms of the labor, the process of the product organization will be taking place, and it may lead to the growth in the overall organization, which will have a huge impact on the positive impact on the overall growth of the economy. And then the high urban household income will also trigger the more expenditure in more expenditure on the products, which in turn will be increasing the demand, and then the corresponding relative production, which in turn will have the huge positive impact on the economy as well. And then the fast growing middle class. See, the middle class in an economy is the major contributor for the spending in an economy. and because they will be spending more on the product, which in turn will be leading to boosting of production of the products. And then finally, the large industrial sectors that is present across the country will enable the foreign investors to invest in those sectors because of the huge potential that it carries, and also the factor of production that each sector has, and the digital transformation that is going on and that is going on now, and also it will be increasing the phase in the upcoming years, so that there will be change in the consumer landscape, and then there will be rise of e-commerce startups, and the more number of unicorns will also be making stride because of the increased digital transformation that is happening in the economy. The unicorn is nothing but the startups which have the valuation of nearly $1 billion. So this is what the reason for the growth in the this is what the reason for the growth in the Indian economy, and also for the reason for the growth that is going to happen in the Indian economy in the near future. So the positives of the rapid digital transformation, what I have said is that it is going to accelerate the e-commerce growth, and then it will be changing the retail consumer market landscape. So because of the lack of increased availability of access to the digital media, people could able to access the market. The people, those who are present in the interior of the region, could also be able to access the mainstream market, so that the consumer market landscape is going to change in the near future, and the population from the interior is going to create more number of demand for the products and as well as the related production, and then boost for homegrown unicorn. As I said, because of the rapid strides in the digital transformation, there will be rapid growth in the startup unicorns, and then these are all the factors which will trigger the investment. Investment means the foreign investment to come inside the country. Most of the FDIs are the non-debt instruments. That is the reason why it is very safe to go with FDI rather than FPI and other investments. These three things will be having a huge positive influence on the investment that is going to happen in the near future. So what reason for the strong FDI inflow is that? So apart from this reason, it will have, because of the strong consumer market growth, because of the increased digital transformation that is happening, that is going to happen. Secondly, increased disposable income across the different section of the economy, most importantly the urban economy, and then the rising middle class, and then increased economic growth will act as trigger apart from these three factors for the strong FDI inflows in India. So what need to be studied further is, first and foremost, we should know about what is purchasing power parity, and secondly we should also know about what is capital receipts, what is capital expenditure, and what is the balance of payment is, and then revenue receipt as well as revenue expenditure. Fourthly, we should also know about what is convertibility and what is the status of capital and current account convertibility in India, and what recommendation the Tarapur Committee on the convertibility gave to Government of India, and what kind of what part of the recommendation have been implemented and what part of the recommendation has not been implemented. We should be aware of it. It is available in the government website itself, like in the case of RBI, Ministry of Finance, so on and so forth. Behind Mumbai's poor air. So the news is related to environment. So under prelims, the news is related to general issues on environment, ecology, biodiversity, climate change. And then under GS paper 3, environment topic, under environment topic, a syllabus called conservation, environmental pollution, degradation, and environmental impact assessment. So through this topic only, the news has been linked with civil service exam. Let's look into the explanation as well as the analysis part of the news. See, the Mumbai, because of its presence in the coastal region, it has positive impact of the coastal land as well as sea breeze. That is the reason why it has some geographical advantage when compared to the Delhi. It has less severe pollution previously. But in the case of the pollution that has been emitted by Delhi as well as Mumbai, both the countries are emitting same. In certain cases, Mumbai is emitting more number of pollution when compared to Delhi. But Mumbai has suffered less severity of the pollution because of the geographical advantage that it carries in the form of the seashore. But this geographical advantage is right now declining. That is the reason why there has been a long spell of the poor air last year. So the long spell means the deterioration of the air was prevailing from November till January 2023. So that is the huge period. Nearly 3 months the air quality was so deteriorated, and it has reached nearly 200, and in some part of the country it has reached, some part of the city it has reached 300 in terms of air quality index. See, whenever the air quality index clocks 200 means then the air quality in the surrounding is poor. If it is clocking 300 or above means then the air quality is very poor. So it demands action by the states as well as the civil societies according to the severity of the air quality that is prevailing in the environment. And what is the reason or the experts are quoting is that first and foremost is the wind pattern. Last year the wind reversal took place once in 10 to 15 days. Usually the wind reversal is nothing but the breeze that is taking place from land and sea and from the sea and land. This cycle is called as wind reversal, and it will be happening once in 3 to 4 days normally, so that the dust that is prevailing, that is suspended in the atmosphere in the coastal Mumbai city will be washed towards the seashore, so that the people does not have suffered the severity of the pollution. But the last year, that is 2022, the wind reversal happened once in 10 to 15 days, and secondly the heaviness of the wind is so mild. That is the reason why most of the pollution which has been stagnated, has been left behind, it does not got moved away towards the seashore, so that people affected because of the increased toll of the increased deterioration of the air quality in the region. And then, as I said, because of the lack of wind reversal and then long calming period. The calming period in the sense, the fastness of the wind which is rushing towards the seashore is very slow. It could not able to move the dust particle that is present in the atmosphere. And why these two things happened is because of the extreme of La Nina phenomenon. La Nina phenomenon is nothing but an extreme cool condition that is prevailing in the Eastern Pacific region. La Nina condition itself is the extreme cool condition that is prevailing in the Eastern Pacific region. If the La Nina has become so extreme means the coldness that is present in the Eastern Pacific region will be very high, that it will have a deteriorating effect in the other regions, so that it will have a huge impact on the wind pattern that is circulating across the earth, which had the negative impact in terms of Indian wind patterns. So that is the reason why there is the long calming effect and also the lower periodic wind reversal. So that is the reason why last year the Mumbai's air quality index got deteriorated. This year the deterioration happened because of different condition. Why? What is that? Is first condition is the calmer air that is prevailing in the region, and because of after the end of the monsoon this October there was steep rise in temperature. Because of the high pressure gradient that has happened because of steep rise in temperature in the region, and the nearby Sahyadri Hills. Sahyadri Hills means the hill part will be cooler when compared to the land part. So that the cooler air rushed towards the city. So while the cooler air is rushing towards the city, during the course of its traveling, it gathered all the dust that is prevailing on the way, and it moved towards the city. So that is the reason why this year Mumbai recorded deteriorated air quality index. So the difference is the cause for the air quality deterioration in Mumbai is different from last year and compared to this year. And the El Nino effect is right now is in the formative stage, and it does not till now it does not have played any kind of impact in the Mumbai's wind reversal or the wind pattern, not only in Mumbai but in the whole part of the India as well. So what experts are saying is that, see, this kind of the wind that the cooler wind subsiding from the Sahyadri Hills to the Mumbai city is happening over the ages. But because of the increased economic activity, like in the case of increased construction activity, road laying activity and other things, the dust or the pollution got increased between the Mumbai city as well as the Sahyadri Hills. That is the reason why whenever when the air got subsided and it is rushing towards the city, it gathered all the dust that is prevailing in the path towards the city. And previously it was the subsidence was happening, but the pollution or the dust particle that is prevailing along the way was very less. So that is the reason why people could not people means the state could not able to take a note about the incidents that is already happening. So once the pollution got higher, most of them are saying that it is first happening for the first time. This was objected by experts who are saying is that it was happening already, but because of the dust that is prevailing in the region, the severity got increased because the wind got gathered all the dust that is prevailing in its way towards the city. So wow, this is what the suggestion or opinion being given by the experts. So what need to be studied further is we should know about what is particulate matter 2.5 and particulate matter 10 and difference between both of them, which was asked in the recent prelims exam. And secondly, we should also know about what is air quality index. Thirdly, we should also know about what is National Clean Air Program, and then what is National Ambient or Air Quality Index is about. So these are all the other areas which we need to be aware of. Lanka offers free visas to Indians to revive the tourism. It comes under prelims through a topic called current events of national as well as international importance, and under mains it is related to India and its neighborhood relationship. So Sri Lanka offered free visa to India, China, Russia, Thailand, Malaysia, Indonesia and Japan to revamp their economy. Why? Because the Sri Lankan economy is mostly dependent on tourism only, because the tourism contributes nearly 5% of GDP, and it is the largest source of income, third largest source of income for the Sri Lankan government, and also major livelihood provider for the economy as well. And India's on the Sri Lankan tourism, India has the largest inbound tourists in the Sri Lanka, and it is followed by Russia as well as China, and India is as I said, is the top tourist arrival in Sri Lanka. And what is the reason for decline in tourism, which is the huge contributor for the GDP of Sri Lanka and also the livelihood of the people in the economy is, first and foremost is a chain of events. First event is Easter Sunday bombing that happened during 2019, and because of this security related issue, secondly because of the COVID related issue and the resultant lockdown, finally the financial crisis and the resultant negative happening that has happened in the society led to drastic decline in the tourism in the Sri Lankan economy. And that is the reason why the tourism sector got heavily affected, and the resultant revenue to the Sri Lankan economy and the livelihood of the people, those who are dependent on the tourist sector, also got affected. And tourism economy, the status of tourism economy in Sri Lanka. As I said, Sri Lanka's economy dependent on tourism sector only. Tourism sector contributes for the third largest source of revenue to the government, and it is contributing to nearly 5% of GDP growth. And what Sri Lankan government is targeting is that they are targeting nearly 5 million arrival by 2026. And till September, after the subsidence of the issues like Eastern bombing, COVID pandemic, and then financial crisis, the end of the 2022 and the beginning of the 2023, the economy began to see the revamping of tourism sector. So from the start of this year until September 2023, tourism sector reached nearly 1 million, and till now it has contributed to $1.3 billion in terms of revenue to the economy. And what the Sri Lankan Prime Minister has recommended is that he recommended that this region, the BIMSTEC region, needed to be made in the form of Schengen area. The Schengen area is nothing but the border-free area agreement that is created between the European Union countries, and which enable the free movements of persons who are part of the Schengen area agreement to travel, to study, to live, so on and so forth. So they could able to travel to any part of the country that is part of the agreement without any restrictions or additional restrictions, and they could able to go for traveling purpose, work purpose, live in the country permanently, so on and so forth. The Schengen area encompasses most of the European Union countries except Bulgaria, Cyprus, Ireland, and Romania. And these 4 countries are also in the process of getting added up to the Schengen area agreement. So let's have a look into the BIMSTEC. BIMSTEC is nothing, it came into being during 1997 after the ASEAN financial crisis through Bangkok Declaration, and it has members from Asian as well as Southeast Asian region. See, 5 members from South Asia and 2 members from Southeast Asia, like in the case of Myanmar and Thailand. And 5 members from Asia are Bangladesh, Bhutan, India, Sri Lanka, and Nepal. So these are all the countries which are part of ASEAN, is also member of the BIMSTEC, and apart from these 5 countries, Myanmar and Thailand, who are from Southeast Asian region, are also part of the BIMSTEC grouping. And the aim is to create the enabling environment for rapid economic development and rapid social progress, which in turn will be leading to overall growth of the BIMSTEC region, that is the Bay of Bengal region. What need to be studied further is, we should know about what is SAARC, what is ASEAN, why these groupings have been formed, who are all the members of the grouping, what is the objective of forming of this group. We should be aware of it, apart from the BIMSTEC. Secondly, we should know about India as well as Sri Lanka's relationship. What are all the India Sri Lanka's economic relationship, what are all the India Sri Lanka's social relationship, cultural relationship, and then defense relationship and other strategic relationship. And about Sri Lanka's economic crisis. These are all the other things which we need to be aware of. Surge and fall. So the news is related to the volatility that is prevailing in the vegetable prices, which in turn is fueling the consumer food price index. How the news is related to prelims is under a topic called economic and social development. Similarly, under mains GS paper 3 economic and development, it is related to Indian economy and issues relating to planning, mobilization of resource, growth, development, and employment. So the inflation got, according to the minutes of the Monetary Policy Committees, which was released recently, said that the inflation surged in the July as well as August month beyond 4%. And the rise in the inflation is because of the soaring vegetable price, which was said by RBI itself. So the September data says, but the consumer food price index cooled down during the September period. It was backed by the cooling down of vegetable prices. The July month, the consumer food price index touched the 11.5% from 4.5% in the previous month. And vegetable inflation touched nearly 37.5% in July month when compared to the 3.4%, and it fell to 3.4% in the September month. And because of this increase in the vegetable inflation only during the period of July to August, the consumer food price index got increased. Why? Because in the weightages that has been given to the food price index, vegetable occupies nearly 15% of the weight. That is the reason why the increased weightage leading to increased food price indexes and the resultant food price inflation. And according to the CRISIL report, which was released recently, what it has said is that during 2016 to 2019 period, the average vegetable inflation is 0% only, and intermittently there was here and there was less spike in steep spike in the vegetable price rise and steep downfall in the vegetable price rise was happened. But between 2019 to 2023, during this 4-year period, the frequency of the steep in the price rise got higher, got very high, and then it created a volatility situation in the policymaker level itself, so that they could not be able to make a clear-cut policy making. So if the inflation is not being estimated properly, means it will have huge impact on budget making, because the fiscal policy is also one of the complementary and supplementary factors along with the monetary policy to contain the inflation in the economy. And the fiscal policy of the government will be determined through the budget, and the budget will be determined only based on the precise estimation. But this precise estimation has not happened because of the increased volatility that is prevailing in the vegetable price during the 2019 as well as during 2019 till 2023 till now. And now also we could not able to predict what may be the upcoming vegetable price because of the prevailing inflation scenarios, the rising interest rate, and then the developing of El Nino in the Eastern Pacific region. So these are all the things that is still keeping the economy in the agile mode, and it is not giving a clear picture in relation to the vegetable price rise. And apart from the other reason, apart from the reason like inflation, El Nino phenomenon, the other reasons like changes in weather pattern frequently because of the climate change and its resultant negative impact on the monsoon weather, like in the case of erratic rainfall, less frequency of rainfall, and then lack of uniformity in rainfall is leading to severe supply chain shocks, and then and also because of lack of storage capacity, and then lack of transportation infrastructure is also hindering the vegetable prices. Why? Because of this reason, most of the vegetable that has harvested got wasted, and before reaching the actual consumer market, it got wasted because of these 3 reasons. So apart from the inflation and the geographical phenomenon, these are all the factors that is having a heavy influence on the vegetable price volatility. Okay, let's look into what is the inflation is about. Inflation is nothing but the rise in the price of production, and it is calculated by the indexes. In India, it is calculated based on wholesale price index and consumer price index. More importantly, in recent times, it is calculated based on consumer price index. And in the consumer price index, food products occupies the major weightages. And in the case of wholesale price index, manufactured products have been given the more weightages when compared to the food as well as agriculture products. And what are all the different types of inflation that will prevail in an economy is, first is creeping inflation. which is between 0 to 3%, and then walking inflation, which is between 3 to 7%, running inflation between 10 to 20%, hyperinflation, that is between 20 to 20 as well as above. So these are all the types of inflation. So what need to be studied further is we should know about what is inflation effect on stakeholders, different stakeholders, and about RBI, what are all the objectives, what are all the different types of function it carries, and what are all the monetary policy tools it has to reduce the inflation, as well as the monetary policy committee and its structure, functioning, as well as the objective. So these are all the other areas which we need to be aware of. Okay, let's look into today's practice prelims question. Mentioned in the board are the today's practice prelims question. I want those students, those who are watching this session online, please do comment the option point for the question which you are seeing right now on the board. With this, we have reached the end of today's section. Thank you.